Well, hello, traders and investors. I'm LA Little. This is your daily NeoTA wrap where we take a look at these markets. Doing it from a neoclassical perspective. It's what I wrote about a decade ago. It's what I've practiced ever since. It is about supply and demand. It's the supply and demand as you see it on the charts. I do a show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursdays, broadcast at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube under the channel LA Little. And if you want to subscribe, just reach up in the right-hand corner and do so. Anytime I push the content, you'll get a notification. If you want to be on my Twitter account, there is a public Twitter. You could actually reach me at that address, but let me find the public Twitter for you. There she is. So it's at @ScienTA today if you want to check me out there. As far as these markets, what did they do today? They got a sell-off. Well, we talked last night. We had the negativity on the one index, and then we saw it across many of the sectors, and that led us to believe that we'd get a pullback today. Well, not only did we get a pullback, we got a good pullback. We got a whacking in the NDX. Now, this, if you know, has been the star all year. We saw a failed bounce now, and I wrote subscribers this morning about the SOX and how the failed bounce was taking place in the SOX and was going to send it lower. That is what's taking place. That was a good short if you were on top of that. S&P down 0.81. The NASDAQ, or at least the NDX, down 1.8. About 1% down on the Russell, and on the, where is the NASDAQ composite? 1.6 down on it, Dow about 0.5%. We had selling across the board in Europe, and we also had some shift over into, quote-unquote, the opposite plays, the gold, the silver, the oil. Bonds get hit, dollar gets hit as well. So it's the classic rotation. You jump from one, you jump back into another. If we take a look at the markets, let's start here with the S&P. Now, unfortunately, I don't have volumes in, so we don't have the volumes to work with as we look today. I do know they were heavier today than they have been. They were not as heavy as they were back on this bar, at least not so far. We're going to see that tomorrow. This is that range trade. Now remember, I told you the way these ranges work is you try to get out on the top side, you get sucked back in. That's what they've done twice. You'll try to break out the bottom side, and you'll try to pull it right back up in there. And so that's what I expect is going to happen here on the S&P as they do their thing tomorrow. And if we look over to the NASDAQ, the NDX, that's where the real action is. Now, on the NASDAQ NDX, it's a totally different picture, and that is because this wide price spread bar range actually has volume down here. So if you really want to draw it correctly, you got to pull it on down there and show it at the bottom, because that's really your range over here. And so on the NASDAQ, that's your range. And if you're looking at where it is, what is it doing? It's coming into it. Volume is heavier than you see here. It's going to come down. It's going to look into this little area right here. It's going to try to break it down. Whether it can or can't will be the question. This is the whole failed bounce scenario. You go up, you can't get over the top, you do an ABC structure to the downside. If you take the width of this and just add it on down here, it's right about there. It's into this bar. It's into the highs of the swing point low. That's where I expect it's going to try and trade to. That's the NASDAQ NDX. Probably looks about the same. Let's see if there's any difference there. Pretty much the same picture. It's just going to get deeper into this bar. So that's the way that one sets up. Let's look at the Russell. Now, the Russell volumes weren't as heavy on the Russell. So, you know, context-wise, it was probably the least increase in volume than the others from what I could see. And what do we got here? We got an ABCD structure to downside. And I'll show it to you real quick. It's from here to there, back up. And these are all about equal, so just pick one and then back down again. So the Russell going to try to come back into this big bar again. How many times we've been there, I can't even count them, but that's what it's doing. If you pull the Russell over now, the Russell had been the weakest, and so the Russell has this structure at the top that's a distribution or consolidation. Call it what you want. You don't always know what it's going to be until it actually ends up doing whatever it's going to do. So when I look at this, you're right, you get highs, highs, highs. You give it up, you come back in, you're doing the test. On the weekly, 1386.53 is what you want to hold. You're sitting here at 14. So you got about 20 points to the downside of slop, if you will. Let's look at the sectors, because the call I made this morning in the morning notes to the members was on the SOX, and I said, you know, this thing is set up to go lower, and go lower it did. It blew out that swing point low today. 142.81 closes up underneath it. You don't have huge volume here, but you don't have, unlike what you just saw in the NASDAQ, the NDX, you don't have much of a bounce taking place. It was right here. And so that move to the downside could expand, and could expand rapidly. What it's going to do is it's going to come back in here, and that's going to be the buy point into this bar. Now, what you want to do, Neoclassical gives you clues to look at, and what it says is as you come back into here, what you want to do is see if it just stops in the top third of it. If it does, that's good. If it gets all the way to the bottom or underneath it, that's bad. This ABCD structure points to lower than that. That's going to be the real test as it comes down. Let's look at the others real quick, see if there's any other news. I didn't flip through these today. So XLB, bearish engulfing, and I'm probably going to see a bunch of those if we go through these. Look at that IBB, right? Squeeze it up, send it back down. That's so typical. That's one of the hardest ETFs or sectors to play, in my opinion. So volatile and so, unpredictable compared to most. At least for me, it's very difficult. XLE coming back down, test the lows. Financials. Now the financials were a good trade. We got long the financials on this push down. We bought them here into this bar, and then bought them deeper as they came in. That was a good trade. And the reason we were doing that is we were looking back over here at a bullish retest regen off of two different bars. It tested a full retest, right? And you could tell that what you were going to get was a bounce back to the top of this high volume bar. That was the target right there. Well, today, what does it do? It gets to 24.32. Guess what the top is? 24.33. You sold it at 24.31 today, made some coin, and what does it do? Gives it almost all up back in. It's going to come back down here. It's going to test it again. It's going to try to break it down, folks. And if it breaks it down, right, then what was up becomes sideways here. So ugly day on this one. XLF, make the money, take the money, leave. XLI, let's see what that one looks like. And that little negative thing yesterday turns into a little more negative thing today. Now this one, let's see, the breakout is here. That top, 67.04, 67. It's going to be a good buy. So here's one that you can look at on the way back and say, okay, this might be a place to buy. That's another one where you want to kind of buy that retest regen. Why? Well, because it's more than 6 bars on the breakout. The breakout's right there, more than 6 bars, right? When it comes back into it here, that's the buy. And so that's the XLI. Let's see what technology did. And they probably got hammered, or at least they should have. And they did. They look about like the NDX. XLP, durables. Now, any rotation of safety? Probably not, because this one is also hurting. And we've highlighted this one before. Well, today they took out the lows, right? That was the big bar there we were talking about. They come, they take it out. This thing has given it up. It's what I expected was going to happen. I flagged this for you some days back. I said, you know, what you want to look at as this one comes back, this is the ABCD structure, right? If it comes back, it's going to get the bounce. And then when it does, what you want to look at is how far does it bounce, because that tells you what the structure looks like. And today it confirms it. This one's going lower, folks. Those big cap, you can't lose stocks. Well, they're losing now. XLU, let's see what that one looks like. Now, this is the pure safety play if you're playing one along with the IYR. Well, they sold that one too, and they broke multiple swing points 2 days ago, and they carry through. Oh, no safety here either. Interesting. XLV, let's see what that one did. I guess they got hit too since biotech came in. Yep, not as bad, but hit. They're going to pull back, and then they'll try to bounce. What you have out here is you got failed bounces. Failed bounces lead to faster moves to the downside. That's what's setting up here. My guess is you're going to see a faster move to the downside. It's going to be tomorrow. Or at least going to be this week. I expect it's going to carry through tomorrow. and then you're going to see the bulls come back in and buy it again. That's what they've been doing. It's a range on the longer term time frame. So in other words, if we pull XLY back, long term time frame doesn't look bad, right? And matter of fact, long term time frame in almost all of these doesn't look bad. Here's the XLV, right? If you look at the XLP, the one that looks horrible on the daily, look at it on a weekly. It's just doing a retest regen. Mind you, it did get under it, and it's negative as a result, but still, I mean, in the big scope of things, these things don't look horrible at all. It's going to take a long time to break this market down in a bigger way. What you're doing now is you're getting your first little stutter step to the downside, and then they'll try to take it up again. That's the way it works. You got to be able to ride the ride. Have a great one. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Good night.